Hey, y'all, imagine pulling into your driveway after a long day, sun dipping low, casting that golden glow over your fields, and then you see Eider. Well, you don't see it. Your family's barn, the one that stood for damn near a century, is just gone. A pile of splintered wood and twisted metal where your whole life used to be. That's exactly what happened to Tom Hargrove, a 54-year-old farmer from Willow Creek, Tennessee, and let me tell you, what he did next shook this fancy lakeside community to its core. Tom's no stranger to hard work hauling grain, fixing fences, the kind of guy who's got dirt under his nails and stories in his bones. His farm's been in the family since his great-grandpa hammered the first nail into that barn back in the 1920s. It wasn't just a building. It was where his dad taught him to mend tractor engines, where his grandma stored jars of peach preserves, where he'd sit on hay bales as a kid, dreaming about the man he'd become. So when he stepped out of his beat-up Chevy pickup that evening, saw the wreckage, and smelled the diesel still hanging in the air, it wasn't just wood that broke, it was him. He grabbed the truck door to keep from falling, muttering, "What in God's name?" as his knees went weak. Across the fence, there they were, three figures by a shiny black SUV, looking like they'd just stepped out of a boardroom. Leading the pack was Lisa Carver, president of the Willow Shores Homeowners Association, her blonde hair pulled tight, her blazer screaming, "I'm in charge." Flanking her were two board members, smug as you please, arms crossed like they'd just won a war. Tom stormed over, boots crunching glass, his voice shaking with fury. "You did this, didn't you?" Lisa didn't even blink. "Mr. Hargrove, that barn was an eyesore. The board voted it violated our covenants. It had to go." Tom's jaw clenched so hard you could hear it. "Eyesore? That barn was here before your McMansions, before your golf carts and your wine nights. My family built this land. You had no right." Lisa's voice cut like a knife. "You signed the annexation papers, Tom. Rules apply to everyone, even you." He wanted to scream, to swing, to do something, but all he could choke out was, "You tore down my history like it was nothing. Do you even know what you've done?" Lisa just stared, cold as ice. "We're improving Willow Shores, Mr. Hargrove. That's what we've done." They climbed into their SUV and peeled out, leaving Tom standing in the dust, holding a bent piece of his dad's old branding iron he'd pulled from the rubble. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat at his kitchen table, a chipped mug of coffee going cold, staring out at the empty spot where the barn used to stand. The lake glimmered under the moonlight, mocking him with its perfection. See, Willow Shores wasn't always this way. Back in the 80s, the county dammed up Clearwater Creek, flooded hundreds of acres, and turned it into a sparkling lake for rich folks to build their dream homes around. Tom's farm was one of the few that didn't go underwater, but the new shoreline kissed his property line. Developers swooped in, and soon, where tobacco fields once grew, you had million-dollar houses with private docks and folks who'd never touched a shovel. Tom didn't fit in his muddy boots, and old Ford stood out like a sore thumb among their Teslas and yoga classes. The HOA had been after him for years, letters about his unkempt barn, his noisy dogs, his unapproved chicken coop. He'd ignored them, thinking his family's history made him untouchable. He was wrong. Around midnight, he called his sister, Maggie, who lived an hour away in Clarksville. "They tore it down, Mags," he said, voice cracking. "The barn's gone. Just flattened." Maggie, half asleep, snapped awake. "Gone? What do you mean gone?" "Bulldozed, like it was never there. They said it broke their rules. That barn was Dad's, Mags. It was us." Maggie swore under her breath. "Tom, you gotta fight this. Take him to court." Tom rubbed his eyes, exhausted. "Court takes money, and they know it. They think I'll just roll over." Maggie's voice softened, but it was firm. "Well, are you gonna?" Tom didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted to the lake, and a memory sparked something his dad, Henry, told him years ago. When they built that dam, the Hargroves kept maintenance rights to an old water valve, a big rusted wool buried in the weeds on their land. "Don't ever forget, Tommy," his dad had said, grinning. "That valve's ours. They can build their paradise, but we control the water." Tom had almost forgotten. Until now. He whispered to Maggie, "I'm not rolling over. Not this time." By morning, Tom was out in the yard, kicking through the wreckage, picking up pieces of his life, his dad's old tools, a faded photo of his grandma, a busted shovel. Neighbors drove by, some staring, some looking away like they were ashamed. One woman, Ruth Bennett, a kind-hearted retiree who ran the HOA's charity drives, stopped her car. "Tom, I'm so sorry," she said, her heels clicking on the gravel. Not everyone agreed with Lisa. That barn had soul. Tom's eyes narrowed. Soul? It was my life, Ruth. My tools, my history. They didn't just take a building. They took my family. Ruth nodded, helpless, and drove off, promising to raise hell at the next HOA meeting. That's when Tom's neighbor, Jim Tate, an old electrician who'd known his dad, wandered over. "Saw the trucks yesterday," Jim said, leaning on the fence. "Couldn't believe it. They've been gunning for you, Tom. You were the last holdout." Tom held up a twisted gate latch, his voice low. "This was my dad's. They didn't just flatten wood, Jim. They flattened him." Jim's eyes flicked to the lake. "You still got that valve, don't you? Your dad told me about it once. Said it's still yours, legally." Tom froze, the idea solidifying. "You saying I should use it?" Jim shrugged, his face hard. "I'm saying they won't stop unless you make them. Sometimes you gotta remind folks whose land this is." That night, Tom stood by the valve, hidden in tall grass, the rusted wheel cold under his hands. He could hear kids laughing on the lake, see porch lights glowing in those big houses. He gave the wheel a tug, just to test it, and it groaned like it was waking up. His heart pounded. He could already picture the docks tilting, the mud creeping up, Lisa's perfect little world crumbling. But then he thought about the consequences: lawsuits, maybe jail. Still, doing nothing felt worse. He gripped the wheel, turned it slow, and heard water rush through the pipes below. The lake was theirs, sure, but he'd just reminded them who held the key. By morning, the lake had dropped 2 feet. Docks stuck out like broken fingers, boats tilted in the mud. Folks thought it was just the heat at first, but by noon, panic spread. Tom sat on his porch, coffee in hand, watching SUVs crawl by, neighbors pointing, whispering. Lisa called an emergency HOA meeting, her voice shrill in their group chat, screaming about sabotage. Tom chuckled. "Good," he muttered. "Let him sweat." Things escalated fast. News vans showed up, cameras pointed at the shrinking lake. Lisa stood on the clubhouse steps, telling reporters, "This is a deliberate attack by Tom Hargrove. He's abusing old easement rights to hurt our community." Tom saw it on TV and laughed. "Hurt? They bulldozed my barn, and I'm the one hurting them." Maggie called, frantic. "Tom, they're blaming you online. Half the county thinks you're a hero, half thinks you're a villain. They filed for an injunction." Tom's voice was calm. "Let em. I've got the deed to this valve. They can't erase that." By day 3, the lake was a muddy pit. Fish flopped in puddles, and vacationers were screaming at property managers. Lisa marched to Tom's driveway with 2 lawyers in tow. "You're destroying us," she shouted. Tom leaned against his tractor, wiping grease off his hands. "Funny, I thought my barn was the one destroyed. You think your lake houses compare to 100 years of my family's blood and sweat?" One lawyer, all slick and polished, piped up. "Mr. Hargrove, you'll be liable for every lost dollar: rentals, repairs, all of it." Tom smirked. "And when I sue you for my barn, what'll you owe me?" "I got time, Lisa. Every minute that valve's open, your lake slips away, and I'm the only one who can stop it." Lisa's face went red, but she stormed off, lawyers trailing like scolded dogs. The county sent officials to inspect, but Tom met them at the valve, arms crossed. "Got a court order?" he asked. They didn't. The crowd behind them shouted, but Tom just pointed at the wheel. "This is mine, deeded in '87. You want to see it turn? Bring a judge." That night, he turned the valve again, water roaring out into the creek. He didn't feel powerless anymore. By day 5, Willow Shores was a mess dock stranded, boats wrecked, the air stinking of mud. The HOA was cracking. At their next meeting, folks turned on Lisa. Ruth stood up, voice sharp. "You lit this fire, Lisa. You tore down his barn without a vote. What did you expect?" Lisa's control was slipping, and she knew it. Then, something shifted. Lisa showed up alone at Tom's fence, looking worn out. No blazer, just a tired woman. "We went too far," she said, voice low. "The barn was a mistake. What'll it take to stop this?" Tom stared at her, the muddy lake behind her. "Respect," he said. "Not money, not your rules. A real barn, like my dad's, and a promise you'll leave my land alone. No more letters, no more games." Lisa nodded, defeated. "A barn, and you're exempt from the HOA. Deal. 2 days later, crews rolled in not to destroy, but to build. A new barn went up, solid, gleaming, not quite the same, but heavy with meaning. The lake refilled as Tom shut the valve, water gurgling back to life. Some neighbors clapped, others grumbled, but everyone knew Tom Hargrove now. Maggie hugged him when it was done, tears in her eyes. Dad would be proud, Tom. Not for winning, but for standing up. Jim, leaning on the fence, grinned. You showed him this land's got a memory longer than their deeds. Life settled, but it wasn't the same. Tom worked his fields, parked his truck by the new barn, and when he walked into town, folks either shook his hand or crossed the street. One night, Maggie asked, "Regret turning that valve?" Tom looked at the barn, glowing in the sunset, the lake shimmering again. "No," he said, "because sometimes you gotta make him see you. They thought they could erase me. I just proved I'm still here." So what do you think? Was Tom right to drain that lake, to fight fire with fire? Or did he go too far, hurting folks who didn't deserve it? Drop a comment. Tell me your take. Have you ever had to stand your ground against a bully with too much power? Subscribe if this hit home, because stories like Tom's remind us, respect isn't given, it's demanded. And when you fight for it, the whole world listens.